Hello, this is Peter Collins with another sales training module for the professional salesperson. And in this segment, I want to explain that in every presentation, there will always be a buyer and a seller. Yes, always a buyer and a seller. And it's commonly known that in every presentation, the prospect will either buy from a seller or the prospect will end up selling to the seller. As much as a lot of people believe that this doesn't happen, it actually happens all of the time. And straight after the break, I'll show you where it happens, how it happens, and how to combat this issue to make sure it doesn't happen. But more straight after the break. Welcome back. Yes, allow me to reinforce what I said in the introduction, because in every presentation there will be a buyer and there will be a seller. And what's more, it's a known fact that in every one of those sales presentations, the prospect will either buy from the seller or the prospect will end up selling to the seller. In this, there is no middle ground. And I want you to make sure that you understand that one factor, because over the years, I've found that this is perhaps one of the hardest facts for the novice seller to come to grips with. In fact, they just can't see how they can get the selling process so wrong that they end up having to buy what they thought was their buyer. And yet the message is absolutely clear that even blind Freddy can see it with his eyes closed, because every time you've accepted a statement similar to any one of these, you have actually bought from the buyer. I really can't afford it right now. I've got too many bills to pay. I'll need to discuss this with. Let me get back to you. We'll definitely be buying it before the end of summer. You know, you've got us at a bad time. It's not something we've budgeted for. Can you come back another time? My accountant has told me not to spend any money. I really want it, but I can't afford to pay that much. See me in 3 months' time. I'll be able to afford it then. Call me next week. I'll need to discuss this with my wife first. It's a great machine. I'd buy it now if it was half the price. We never make a decision until we sleep on it first. Let me think about it first. Can you call me next week? And these type of responses in the trade are generally called fairies. Yes, fairies. The type of fairies we were told about when we were kids, told about those fairies at the back of the garden. Well, they're the same type of fairies that the prospect has now handed across to the so-called salesperson. And although many of the statements may have been genuine at the time they were made the first time, the prospectors picked up on the fact that they got sympathy by using those statements. And when that happens, they will generally latch onto what actually worked for them to get rid of the salesperson. And they'll do this so well, and they'll make it seem so genuine. So many novices and even the older salespeople will fall for that. Now, some of the better salespeople will fall for it 19 out of 20 times. Yes, maybe even 9 out of 10. But to the screaming novice that doesn't quite understand what's happening, this could be happening 99 out of 100 times. And if you need to write something off to experience and only get one sale out of 99 calls, I think you've got a problem, both mentally as well as financially. And as I said at the very beginning of this presentation, that there will always be a buyer and there will always be a seller. Now, what you need to work out on every call you make, bar none, is are you prepared to be the seller, understand what the rules are, or are you just happily prepared to hand over the whole process to the buyer and become the buyer of what the buyer tells you? Because if that's the case, you really need a wake-up call, big time. And if you don't get it very soon, you won't be in sales for very long. Sad to say, but it's true.